Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how to do a full service on a salt pool. And we're going to assume that you don't know much about the pool, but it looks about like this, where there's not a bunch of algae on it. Water clarity is pretty good. You see there's dirt at the bottom and have no idea what the chemicals are at. So we're going to do a full service on the pool and check some chemicals. And I have separate videos on how to check chemicals and how to vacuum and things like that, if you need more specific details how to do those things. But I'm going to go just quickly in general how to give your pool a full service. So the equipment you would need, I have a brush, your telescopic pole. I also have a towel brush, which you don't really need, but it's handy. Got your vacuum and test kits and vacuum hose and net and some chemicals. And again, this is a salt pool, and the first thing we're going to do is we've taken a look at it, and it looks in pretty good condition actually, but we're going to check all the chemicals. Now if you've been maintaining your pool, you don't have to go through everything every week, but in this case I'm going to check the phosphates, the chlorine, the stabilizer, the alkalinity, and the pH, and I'm going to do that first right now. Okay, for your weekly checking of chemicals, a basic test kit like this is sufficient. And basically I use this test kit to test pH, chlorine, and alkalinity, and I like to check those every week on our pools. And the stabilizer and phosphates and things like that, you don't have to check every week, but we'll start with these three tests and see where this pool sits right now. Okay, I got the chlorine on the left side and the pH test on the right side. The chlorine is reading about a 2 and the pH is a 7.8. And again, I'll put other videos that show details on how to check the chemicals, proper ways to do it, but we're just going through this kind of quickly just to get the general idea. But in this case, I like, especially in Florida in the summertime now, I like the chlorine to be up higher, like a 3, so we'll adjust that. The pH is 7.8, which means it needs some acid to lower it. And now I'm going to check the alkalinity. Okay, the alkalinity was 90, which is in the ideal range, which is good. The next thing I'm going to check on this is the salt content. For that, I fill the vial up about halfway, and I use some salt test strips. AquaCheck, that's a good product. You can use digital checkers, and you could take it to the pool store, but I like these. They're accurate. There's a lot of them in here, and they just do pretty good. So right now I'm going to check the salt and make sure it's in the ideal range for the salt system that's on this pool. Okay, I just tested the salt, and it was a 7, which equates to 4,370 parts per million. So we're going to go over to the salt system and see if that falls within the ideal range. And they'll usually say on the label, the salt systems, this is a PureChlor, and it says the salt should be between 3,500 and 4,500, and we're 4,300, so the salt level is good. And it gives you other numbers like for pH and alkalinity and stabilizer. Now this pool was running a little low on chlorine at 2, and in the Florida summer I like it at a nice solid 3. So we're gonna see what we can do to boost the chlorine output of that unit, and there could be a few things we could do. You could run the pump longer, you could set the output higher, but we need to check the stabilizer first to see where that's at. Stabilizer is like the sunblock for the chlorine. If the stabilizer is too low, you're going to lose a lot of chlorine, so let's make sure that's right before we do anything else. Okay, the stabilizer is reading 90 parts. So that's in the good range. In the Florida summer, 90, 100, at least over 80 it should be. People might think that's high. It's not in the Florida summer. So 90 is exactly where I want it. So the salt's good, the stabilizer's good. The only thing that's off on this pool, the pH is a little high and the chlorine's a little low. So we are going to see what we can do to boost the chlorine level in this pool. Alright, I noticed my unit, the output, those little lights at the top would be 100% output, and where it's at right now is 60%, something like that. But I noticed on the timer this thing's only running 4 hours. In the summer we want to run this thing 8 hours, and by running it longer this unit will produce more chlorine even if the output is not adjusted. So I don't need to raise the output on this thing. What you should do is set the timer so the pool is running 8 hours, and that'll give this unit more time to generate chlorine, and that alone should solve the problem of the low chlorine. Okay, I adjusted the timer to run 8 hours, which should solve the chlorine problem. And as far the other chemical that was off was our water balance is the pH. It was reading a 7.8. So in order to bring that down, we're going to dump in some muriatic acid. 2 quarts should be sufficient for most pools. That works. So we're going to add 2 quarts of muriatic acid, and that's the only chemical it needs. The phosphates were in the low range. In a salt pool, they should be pretty much 0. So we're going to throw in 2 quarts of acid, and chemically this pool will be ready to go, and then we'll move on to the next step, which is cleaning and brushing. Okay, the first step in cleaning the pool I like to do is vacuum, because vacuuming is the biggest pain in the butt, and I want to get that over with. And also, you don't want to brush before you vacuum because you stir up stuff on the bottom and it go into suspension. You can't vacuum it up. But the first thing you want to do when you vacuum is make sure your pump basket's clean of debris, and the pump's on and primed and running good, and the filter pressure's not too high. If you've got a dirty filter, you won't get good suction. But the first thing you really want to do is isolate your skimmer, because we're going to vacuum out of the skimmer. So right now this is the main drain, this is the skimmer. So I'm going to turn the main drain completely off so all the water sucks in through the skimmer, so I get the maximum pull over at that skimmer right now. Now I'm ready to vacuum. Okay, I'm going to put a video up that shows more details on how to vacuum, but it's pretty easy. I put the swivel in on the vacuum head, and the other end will go into the skimmer. But before you put in the skimmer, you want to make sure to get all the air out of the hose. And I don't use a pool return to do that. I bury the hose, and I'll show you how to do that in another video. But ultimately, get all the air out of that hose, and then plug it into the skimmer and start vacuuming. Okay, I got all the air out of the hose. It's plugged into the vacuum. After all the air is out of the hose, I plugged it into the skimmer, and there's a skimmer basket. You can clean that out while you do this. But the vacuum is ready to go. How do you vacuum? Pretty self-explanatory. It has suction down there, and you move it around and suck up the debris on the bottom. So after you get done vacuuming it, what I like to do is I'll pull everything out of the water, and you'll see the air start sucking into the hose real quick, and then before the air gets to the skimmer basket, pull the hose out. That way it's easier to wrap up the hose when you're done. But this part's pretty self-explanatory. Once you got suction down there, start going at it. All right, here's a picture of my lovely wife vacuuming the pool, showing the highly skilled technique of running the vacuum over the bottom of the pool. Isn't that amazing? Servicing the pool, vacuuming is the crappiest part of servicing most pools. That and cleaning filters, but dealing with the hose and everything, I don't like it. But we'll get it vacuumed, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, when you're done vacuuming, here's the technique I was talking about to get the hose out. It's easy. You take the head, put it on the deck, watch the air go around the hose, and then yank it out. That way the hose is light and easy to work with and easy to wrap up. But don't keep it in there too long, because then the pump will lose its prime, and that's not good. So that's it. Okay, the pool's been vacuumed. Looks good. The next step we want to do is get a tile brush, or you could use a regular brush, and we want to go around the tile to knock the scum line off, put things in the water so we can get it out with the net. Real easy. You don't have to go slow or anything. You can just put the brush here, walk around the pool like this, knocking the stuff off the edges. Go around the whole pool, and we'll move to the next step. Okay, I went around the tile with the brush, and now you get the net and you net the surface debris out of the water. And I'm not going to show myself doing that because it's very self-explanatory. After I get done netting it, I'll move on to the next step. Okay, I netted the surface debris off the water. This looks good. The next step is you put on your brush and you go ahead and brush down the walls of the pool. You can take your time and be as meticulous as you like, but you do want to brush the side walls and the steps. That's the important part. You don't really need to brush the bottom, it's not necessary. But after we get done brushing, that will be the final step in the cleaning portion. And the last thing we'll do is I'm going to clean the filter. So I'm going to brush it down and we'll move on to the filter cleaning. Okay, as far as this pool is concerned, it has a DE filter. It's a 36 square foot F&S. And probably a pool like this, it gets used in the summer. I'd clean this thing once a month. And I'll upload a video on cleaning DE filters. This goes into more details, but basically you backwash, rinse, and then add more DE powder. And I'm going to keep it isolated on the skimmer because when we pour the new DE powder, I actually use a pearl substitute. It's non-carcinogenic and it's a little better. So that's what we use. But before I clean it, and so after you vacuum the pool, you really should go to your pump basket and clean it out again, get all the debris out. After you do that, let the pump prime up again, turn it off, and backwash this filter to get all the old crap out of it. And I'm going to do that now. Okay, to quickly go over the cleaning technique for DE filter, I cleaned out the pump basket, I let it prime up, turn everything off, and you take the handle and you push down, rotate it clockwise to backwash. And then just turn it back on. And you let it run for about a minute. Okay, I let it run for a minute, then I turned it off, then you rotate it to the rinse setting. Like I said, I could put another video up on how to clean filters because there's many different types of filters and different type of valves, but for this one, you go to backwash for about a minute, turn it off, switch it to rinse, let it run for about 15 seconds, which I'll do right now. Okay, I'll let it run for about 15 seconds, and all you do now is just repeat the process. If it's real dirty, you can do it, 3 times, but I'm going to move it back to backwash, let it run for about a minute, turn it off, move it to rinse, let it run for about 15 seconds, turn it off, and then set it to the filter position and turn it back on. And after I do that, we'll pick up from there for adding the DE powder, or pearl substitute in my case. Okay, I have it set to filter now, it's running. Here comes my crazy dog, Snowball! Girl! There she goes, the black dog named Snowball. Getting all wet and muddy, then we go inside and play in the house. But in any case, I got it back to the filter position, and I still have the skimmer isolated because I'm going to pour the DE powder in the pool. But here's what you want to do: you make sure this thing's not leaking. It's set the filter, pump's running, pump basket's clean, filter's just been cleaned out. Now time to add the powder. Okay, as far as the DE powder is concerned, and again I use the pearl substitute. Get a 5-gallon bucket, and here's where I keep my DE powder in these orange scoops. I use 3 scoops for a 36 square foot DE filter, and that's about, well, it's a half a pound, 1 pound a scoop, so 3 pounds is sufficient for that filter. So I'm gonna scoop it out of here, put it in the bucket, and go over to the skimmer. Okay, I got my bucket full of the DE powder, and here's my skimmer, and you can see it's got good flow going to it. What you do is you slowly start pouring this DE powder in the skimmer, and I'll try to hold the camera and do that at the same time. And don't pour too much because it'll shoot back into the pool. About like that, and then keep pouring it. And when you do that, look at your pool returns and make sure the DE powder is not coming back through the pool returns. That's what we call blow by, and that's no good. So let me pour the rest of it in here and we'll pick up from there. Okay, after you cleaned the filter and added the DE powder, make sure to set your valve back right. I'm going to open it where it's flowing just a little bit from the main drain, but still you're pulling most of the water from the skimmer. The dirty water's on top, and you want the skimmer to always pull a little harder than the main drain. So I set it just about like that. Okay, the only problems I noticed on this pool, the water clarity, it's actually my pool and I just haven't serviced it forever, but that's besides the point. But the only problems I noticed, the chlorine was a little low and the clarity wasn't really good. Both of those problems are explained by the timer. It was winter and it was set to run only 4 hours. And now that it's summer, it really needs to run for 8 hours. So I set the timer for to run 8 hours, and that'll bring the chlorine level up because the salt system will run longer, and it will improve the clarity of the water because it will filter longer. And I have I'll put up more specific details on how to add chemicals and some safety precautions and things like that that's important. This is just a general video of how to do a full service on a salt pool. And when you're done, after you service the pool, give it about an hour before you go in it. If you've added chemicals, in this case I added some acid, so make sure the pump's running, give it about an hour, and you'll be good to go. Hope you enjoyed this video and learned something, and please subscribe if you haven't, and I'll continue to put up some more helpful videos. Thank you.